Hey guys, welcome back to Clover Mobile. In today's video, I wanted to talk about Season 3, the banner, and whether you should pull or not. And I'm going to kick it off real quickly with free-to-play players. In general, for most free-to-play players, I think this is a safe banner to skip and save your summons for. Now, on one of my accounts, I will be summoning, and I'm going to talk about why that is, and maybe you're in a similar situation, but I'm thinking most people won't be. So for most people, I think it's a pretty safe one to save. Now, I made a whole video going on who to choose from your gateway. In general, I think Charlotte is going to be your safest bet, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time a bit later in this video talking about Charlotte and talking about spenders and pulling for spenders. Now, I can never give an accurate gauge on whether you should pull as a spender because I don't know how much you're spending. I'm not a spender myself, but I want to talk a bit about the meta and where I think Charlotte is going to take the meta. Now, I also had a fantastic discussion about this stuff with Giku and Antho on a stream about a week ago. I'll leave that linked in the description. Giku and Antho, both boys that have played basically from the start of JP/KR. They played through Canada and stuff like that. Really knowledgeable content creators. I'll leave their links in the description as well. Go show those boys some love because they are making great content, and I just really appreciate those two as just good content creators in the space, and I love having chats with them. So go show them some love. But essentially, what I want to look at here is, first of all, we'll bounce over to my account. And this is my new Asia server account. And the reason I'm going to be summoning on this account is essentially because I'm just out of I'm out of mage pieces. Like, I've got 2 mage pieces left for the exchange. So when this banner comes, I am going to do some summons. I do have an absolute ton saved, as you can see. I'm at 105. I got 27. I've still got a bunch of the star achievements and stuff to get on this account. So essentially, I'm probably going to be, once I do all the achievements, around 400 pulls on this account. So I'll probably drop 50 to 100. It's not the most horrid banner. I think Fuegoleon will have some use for me if I do manage to get him. Otherwise, like I said, if I get a Charlotte, then I can pick up Charlotte and Fuegoleon to have a bit more in my roster. And the other reason is because if we look at me in PvP at the moment, I'd love to do a few summons and maybe get some more dupes on either Finral or Veltos so I can have a little bit more speed, because as you can see, I've only done, I think, about 70 or 80 pulls on this account total. So I do need some more. So if you just need to expand your roster, get some dupes on some SRs, it's never like the end of the world to pop, like, 10 to 50 summons into a banner. But for most people where you're set up like my other account, unless I just get that itchy trigger finger, which everyone does sometimes, and I do a couple pulls just for the shits and gigs of it, I think it's a pretty safe banner for most free-to-play players to skip. As for spenders, like I mentioned at the start, it's hard for me to give it an assumption, but in general, I think for most spenders, it's a banner like low to mid. And this is like, once again, I don't know your range of spending, but if you don't normally summon every banner to max out units, I don't think this is one that you really have to be diving into at all. But once again, that is your personal preference, but I think it's a fairly safe banner to avoid. But I want to take a minute to talk about where I see the meta going and why I see Charlotte as being very impactful in the meta. We're going to focus in on Charlotte here in terms of both free-to-play usage, but also when we look at, top 500 usage, where a lot of people will have her max duped and the skill page. And I think she's just going to become, like I said, a very meta unit in that sense for the supportive factor. And then I want to talk about, we could go deep into, once people start using Charlotte, how to counter the Charlotte and stuff like that. I don't know how deep I'm going to go, but I just want to have a chat about it and talk about it because I definitely see her being one of the most impactful things in the meta. First of all, let's talk about it from a free-to-play perspective, where you don't have this, you don't have her skill page, and also you're not going to have her at the 126 speed because you're not going to have her duped. Now, the 126 speed, and this is why I think at max dupes, she's going to be insane because she's going to be equal speed with William Vengeance, which is faster than Finral Veltos, which is going to be incredibly valuable. But let's talk about it from a free-to-play perspective, where you're not going to have that added speed. So from a free-to-play perspective, you're going to have this. You're going to have skill 2, which grants allies attack. You're going to have this skill, which grants a counterattack. And those are going to be your 2 main things that you're looking at with it. Now, her skill 2 And like, let's face it, the main thing you're looking at down here is this one. And this is where on my free-to-play accounts, this is the use that I'm looking to get out of her, because I still think the damage focus of the meta will be Julius and Noelle, but I do think we will see a lot of mono blue teams as well due to this effect. So with this one, and I'm talking about an offensive meta, defense is also like, I do think she will be used on defense, but I'm just going to look at it from an offensive point of view because it's a more simplistic view to look at. So this ability, when all allies, and this is what you get for getting her to LR, this is her LR thing. When all allies belong to the technique type, which is blue, inflict silence for 1 turn on the enemy team at the start of battle. Now, as we all know, the current meta is fixed into being Julius and Noelle. And if that continues to be what you see on defenses, well, this kind of makes that a lot easier to manage, because Julius and Noelle is not too bad to manage if the Julius isn't using his skill 2 first turn. I think people very quickly realized that Julius using skill 2 on defense first turn is what really threatens, because then they just jump in. Normally you're going to be fighting speed teams. They go first, they use Julius skill 2, they use Noelle's skill 2, and you're pretty much boned from there. But this locks Julius out of that skill 2. Now, some people also had issues with Noelle using her skill 2 if you didn't have something like Blue Yami to remove those shields, and then that became an issue. So the two things that are often issues for players are now removed out of that arsenal from the enemy defense team, which means now you don't have to worry about that, which I think really good. I think having because you're going to have a full blue team to get this effect, and in that full blue team, you're probably going to bring Mars, and Mars is going to attract the Julius ult, because that enemy Julius is going to be ulting, and because Mars has the higher taunt value, he's going to be getting hit. You just put stun immunity on him, and then you can still stun the enemy team with your Mars. So that Julius is basically negated for the first turn. He's not a threat anymore. Then you've got the Noelle, who can use an AoE, but with her ultimate, but your whole team's going to be blue, so it's not going to be as threatening on it. Now, that gets us into a whole nother topic, that this could revitalize the green meta using the Licht and Raya combo, but that's like a whole nother thing that we can go into in a future video. But this in itself, I think, is going to make arena offense a lot better for free-to-play players who don't have that +3 carvestone to be able to be at a speed tie with the with the whales and stuff like that. So you come up against enemy teams, you have a full blue team, they're going to go first. They're still going to go first with their speed team, but you should survive it, and then you can go on the counter attack. And when you go on the counter attack, if it is against those speed metas, then you can just boost your team's attack, and then you can just get that extra damage in, and you can go to wipe. It's fairly, like, if I'm looking at a blue team, however, on defense, so offensive blue team I'm looking at with this would be something like Charlotte, along with Mars, along with Julius being your main damage dealer, and then you can either look to using a Summer Charmy, it's going to be a bit slower on offense, or you can also look to using the Lotus, because the Lotus is going to be really handy for damage amplification, turn manipulation, all that sort of stuff. And I think those teams are going to be pretty solid. Some people may even chuck a William in there as well. There's plenty of options on blue. We know blue is incredibly strong. You got Fauna as another option if someone has Fauna, blue Fauna, because then you can get that extra damage, and then you can go the hard cleave. So if you had a Fauna, you could just go like this, and then you just basically run in, you use her, use the attack buff, sweet, then you go in with your Fauna, AoE, use your Julius, ult, kill something, then you go AoE, happy days, more damage, and then you can just bring in your Mars and use him in a combo attack with either Julius or Fauna to help clean up something else. And I think that's going to be like a really strong offensive. But like I said, if you don't have Fauna, you do have other options as well, because not everyone has her or went for her or has her built. So I think this is where free-to-play is going to get incredible value out of the Charlotte. And then if we look at her on a sense of, you know, the top 500, I think she's going to be incredibly meta, because she will have that 126 speed, which means she's going to be the fastest thing on the field, except for enemy Charlottes and also and Vengeance. And this is just going to allow her to basically control the tide of battle. And once you have that skill page, if the enemy doesn't have a Charlotte on their team to lock you out of your skill 2, not only do you get the increased attacks you can set up, but the rest of your team can be slow. You can, like, let's for instance say you're coming up against a speed team, a boosting team, Funeral Beltos. You can just go first with her. You're guaranteed to get first turn if you've got max dupe. Then they're just going to buff. That means your team gets the attack buff, your team gets the total defense, which means they're going to live whatever the enemy has to throw at them, and they're going to be buffed and ready to go. So you basically go with your Charlotte, you use that skill. Cool beans. Keeping in mind they can't use their skill 2s, no Julia's skill 2s to rip you apart and annoy you. And then away you go. You're just basically waiting, and this does require you to use a full blue team, obviously. But then you just buff. You're gonna survive. You're gonna have boosted attack. You let them do whatever the hell they want to do, and then you just come in and you clean up. So that's where I think Charlotte is going to be amazing, and max dupe, I think she's going to be crazy. But once again, I do think that pulling on this banner is not the greatest move because there's not a ton of things that you want to get. Like, the only thing I'm interested in really on this banner, like, I do want a Fuegoleon to test him. I do think he could have impacts for some people, but he's not going to be as big as Charlotte. So even though I do like the idea of picking up a Fuegoleon and Charlotte, it's not as important as, say, the last season on, like, I'd rather have a Noelle and a Charmy from the last season than a Charlotte and a Fuegoleon from this season. So I think it's pretty safe to skip this one. And the only things I would be looking from this personally would be Charlotte's skill page and Charlotte dupes, and you're just not guaranteed enough to do that, and it's going to take way too many summons. So for free to play, I think you can skip. For light spenders, I think you can skip. And then for whales, or you do your whale thing. But for everyone, if you feel like summoning, go ahead. It's a game. It's about having fun, so do whatever you enjoy. But that is my thoughts on... Dude, I went on a bit of a rant there, but I just enjoy PvP in this game. Anyway, I'm going to shut up. Thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.